Yeah.
lot. Yeah. So, Elhan, you were a manager and an architect for the T-Rex company. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. I'm managing the cloud engineers and architects in a company called TRX Solutions here at East Coast, United States, and we deliver cloud modernization and uh, cloud services to our customers.
That's nice.
Hmm.
So, you were talking today about securing infrastructure
Infrastructure
as
as
a
a code,
code
yes, in your
in our
cloud
cloud
environment.
environment. That's very nice.
Hmm.
Thank you very much for being here with us to share your knowledge. And
Thank you, Gustavo, for welcoming.
sure. So this is your presentation.
Yep,
The
thank
floor
you.
is yours.
Great, thank you. All right, everyone. Welcome to this session. I know that you have been in this session, probably in this marathon for a long time, and probably are a bit tired, but I will try to make my session a bit more different, maybe dynamic in terms of if you put the questions there in comments, I will try to address them right away. And what I'm going to do here in this session, Zero to Hero, is to take your knowledge of understanding infrastructure as code and security concepts into the next level, where you can actually don't just Google those terms, but you also know the principles. You know the what are the main cornerstones that you need to have in your project, so that you can say that your infrastructure as code that you use to deploy your cloud services is actually secure and how to achieve those state. And in addition to that, I'll provide a small example and demo at the end of the session. But before doing that, of course, I want you to become familiar with the, principles, with how to understand this concept and how to get on a right foot if you are trying to secure your infrastructure as code. Okay, I hope that's interesting to you so that we can start our session. So a little bit about myself. Thank you, Gustavo, for introducing. My name is Elhan, and I'm a cloud architect manager, as I mentioned. But in addition to that, I'm a Microsoft MVP. And on the left side of this slide, you see some of my social contacts. I'm on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I really appreciate if you put a direct message there, or want to get connected with me, as because if you get connected with me especially on a LinkedIn platform, you would see that I usually push some really informative and new content regarding the infrastructure as a code, DevOps, and automation that you may find very interesting. And in addition to that, I'm also author on a LinkedIn. So if you see any video courses here and there, it might be some of the latest editions that have been published from the LinkedIn platform. But I'm there to guide and mentor people, and especially the community who are trying to learn. Okay, it's enough about me. But I also have a blog that I'm running, the cloudmarathoner.com, and if you see a hashtag cloudmarathoner, know that it's actually my thoughts and some of my perspectives in terms of how to approach certain technology concept or implement something or solve the problem. All right, that's it. I want to just spend couple of seconds here on this slide, which is a compact infographic about the company where I'm working. We are we are proudly actually working on delivering mission critical systems, which are cloud enabled solutions to our customers, with a team of engineers that I'm managing here at TX Solutions. We have strong partnership with cloud solution providers as well that help us to deliver the best we can to customers, and we also support our local communities here. In addition to that, this is another infographic that show you uh, information about the different agencies that we are working and a scale of the work that we delivered, especially during the US Census 2020 program, which was actually conducted under as you know, it was a COVID time, people were locked down, but still this program was successful in terms of not revealing any major vulnerabilities during the operation timeframe. And that was in part due to security-minded professionals that we that are employed within this organization, and open-minded approach to secure the customer workloads before the vulnerability is there. Now that said, now I want to go through the what we will cover in this session so that you can get some expectation in terms of what to expect from this presentation, and dive in. So first we will start with
Since NJM
manual configuration risk, right? So everybody knows that when things are not done in a proper way, and if you don't script or automate or version control things, then certain stuff can go wrong very easily and get out of whack. So we'll look into how we can avoid those manual configuration risks, how we can then we'll look into how we can declare resources as infrastructure as a code. And while speaking about infrastructure as a code, keep in mind that sometimes I will use abbreviation IaC, and IaC will stand for infrastructure as a code, so that I'm not repeating the same thing over and over again. Then we will look into DevSecOps principles, which is DevOps is building security into that, and what to expect, what should be the cornerstone of that approach. Then, of course, after that, we'll look into policies and governance that would enable your organization to use infrastructure as a code and its benefits to this approach. And finally, we'll look into some use cases and demo at the end of the session. And I will also try to spare a couple of minutes at the end of session so that I can address the any questions that you may bring into the studio. All right. So I hope that sounds interesting to everyone here, and we can kickstart our session. All right. Okay, let's start with the first one. So manual configuration risks across any cloud vendor, that may happen because when you log into any cloud vendor portal or console app, you would see that you have the ways to configure. But poor and inconsistent configuration of cloud resources can lead to a lot of errors, right? Which could have a negative impact on the performance of your cloud environment, first of all. And secondly, the manual updates can result in errors and mistakes. But even if the update works well, what always annoys me as a professional is about the manual updates that they are almost never consistent, right? When you have manual updates here and there or different places, they are never going to be consistent, which creates pain points and issues down the road. So we have to have a better way to manage it. Next is security risks that are, born with these manual configurations. Manual configuration can also lead those risks due to misconfigurations, right? And the lack of strong security measures that are baked into the proper configuration that you need to provide for your service. Next thing that we worry about this configuration is the vendor lock-in. So manual configurations of cloud resources may lead to vendor lock-ins, meaning that if you decide to switch cloud vendors from one cloud solution provider to another one, you will have to manually transfer all the data and configuration to the new cloud. Just to give you an idea, let's say you want to switch the data service providers, like it can be your S3 bucket and cloud storage account in Microsoft Azure. Their configurations, of course, they are similar concepts, but they are different. And if whenever you just use one of them, you kind of vendor lock in with all the configurations that you can apply to that service. Next is cost overruns, right? So manual configuration of cloud resources can lead to cost overruns, as it is difficult to accurately estimate the costs involved in creating, configuring, and managing cloud resources. And especially with the manual deployment, whenever you don't have automated way to manage your resources, a cost of the running resource, more than you intended, or not having any specific schedules will always result in cost overruns. And finally, lack of automation. With manual configuration, you miss out on the benefits of automation. It means that you just take all this goodness that brings efficiency into your project and you just throw them into the trash. So Lack of automation usually is actually not just about time, but it's also efficiency and security. With manual configuration, though, you miss out on those benefits of automation, such as faster deployment, improved scalability, and flexible resource management that can be done with part of the automation and scripting that you can bring into your project. So before going too much into infrastructure as a code and those principles that we described, I want to actually dive into infrastructure as a code options and tools that we currently have. And some of them might be familiar to you because if you follow me on different social media, you would see that I'm sharing actual information about that. And first of them, let's start with Azure Bicep, which is the newest family in infrastructure as a code. And as you know, Azure Bicep is a new domain specific language for provisioning the Azure resources. It's focused on Microsoft Azure platform, and the purpose of this language is to simplify the authoring experience with the cleaner syntax and more code reuse in the components that you try to create and manage those cloud resources that you uh, have to have in place to run your project. This new language is actually aims to make it easier to write those infrastructure as a code for developers and DevOps engineers that typically create those Azure Resource Manager templates to provision and maintain infrastructure where the project should run. Next, as you know, there's like another big player in this infrastructure as a code field called Terraform, right? And Terraform enables infrastructure automation for provisioning, compliance, and management of different clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, data centers, and services. And with Terraform, you learn one syntax and one structure that gets applied to the supported cloud providers, right? But it comes with its own nuances that you have to manage, like state file and other pieces that you have to be aware about. Next, tool that has been used a lot, especially in the projects that we did for our customers, is Ansible. And Ansible can be used to provision the underlying infrastructure of your environment, virtualized hosts and hypervisors, network devices, and bare metal services. And it can install those services, add compute hosts, and provision resources, services, and application inside of your cloud. So it's a very powerful tool that's used across the organizations. In addition to that, when we look at the cloud side or and to AWS, AWS came up with a cloud infrastructure tool called AWS SDK, which probably are familiar with. And it is known as a cloud development kit that stands for that SDK, CDK, sorry, for that CDK. It's a framework that, again, developed by AWS that allows you to define and provision cloud infrastructure in code and deploy it through AWS Cloud Formation. And finally, the last but not least, we have Pulumi, right? And Pulumi, you can, if you want, you can compare that with Terraform in a way that while both Terraform and Pulumi are declarative tools, Pulumi uses general purpose imperative language. So you may ask, what does it mean, right? Imperative language. It means that Terraform automatically generates the infrastructure based on the code that is written, while Pulumi requires that users requires the user to write the code that specifically describes the infrastructure. So it's a different approach in terms of applying those concepts. Okay, now knowing these major tools in infrastructure as a code field, now it is time to dive to our next portion where we'll look at how you can declare resources as IaC or how you can declare them as infrastructure as a code and what benefits it brings to you, right? So why you should care about them or why does declaring these cloud resources as code will minimize the security threats and improve the security compliance posture of your organization and your customers. So first of all, Declaring cloud resources as code refers to using this programming language or configuration file to define and provision cloud resources, such as, can be your virtual machine, can be your compute, storage, or network services. By doing this, organization can benefit from a number of uh, advantage, security-related advantage, and first of them is consistency and repeatability, as you see on the screen. So declaring cloud resources as code enables organization to maintain a consistent and repeatable infrastructure across multiple environments. And this, in fact, reduces the risk of human errors and configuration drift, which can lead to security vulnerability. So this is one way how you can prevent it. Second way, of course, is automation, automation, and automation. With IaC, which stands for Infrastructure as a Code, you can enable your organization to automate the provisioning, configuration, and management of the cloud resources. And these, in fact, going to reduce the need for manual interventions, which are basically correlated with introducing security risks. So less manual work is done on, you know, setting up your resources, and more repeatable process you use, it means the more secure, more reliable it is. Next is it's not just about setting the cloud resources. In addition to that, we need to have certain type of testing to verify the stuff, right? And that's where uh, IaC tools can help you to identify security misconfigurations and vulnerabilities in cloud resources before they are deployed. With security testing, you can include checks or on default passwords, open network ports, and insecure storage configurations that you want to avoid in your deployment. So part of the verifying what you deployed is very important, especially with infrastructure as a code. Next is, of course, things will go wrong, right? No matter how awesome your automated script is, in a real world, you know, you will have your oops moments where, for example, deployment of the infrastructure as a code went with the wrong version, or things that used to be working in one environment for some reason magically do not work as an update on another environment. So to manage those risks and in order to be, very confident that if things goes wrong, you can have this ability to revert back to a prior state of the resources and the services that you run for your project, we need to have this thing called version control. And by using version control tools, your organization can track changes made to their cloud infrastructure over time, enabling them to quickly revert to a previous known good state in the event of security incidents or issues that are uh, or a big issue that's you're getting, calls from tier one support or from the customers. Next is, of course, part of this movement is about compliance, especially when you are working for a regulated environment where compliance is dictated by the authorities, then you want to declare your cloud resources as a code so that you can help your organization achieve and maintain compliance with security standards that are with security standards that are actually mandated on your system. And when we speak about those standards, we talk about the, regulations like SOC 2, HIPAA, PCI compliance, and similar ones. And automating the deployment of security controls and configurations will make sure that your organization can more easily demonstrate their compliance and security posture to auditors. So when you get the audit, you have basically, proof points to show why your system is actually, compliant. So to sum it up, declaring cloud resources as code has many benefits, especially for your organization's security posture. It ensures that infrastructure is configured consistently and consistently meets security requirements. That consistency is something that you actually value very much especially under that security, mindset, under that security requirements that you have to be compliant with. It is also makes it easier to detect, identify, and remediate those security vulnerabilities that may come up, during this development stage or even staging stage when you are planning for your deployment. By automating those deployment of cloud resources and infrastructure resources, your organization can reduce those manual errors, reduce those manual errors and enforce the security best practices, and as well as ensure that all resources are properly secured and ready for deployment. Again, using this code to manage cloud resources will also enable your organization to track the change and detect unauthorized or malicious modifications that happen to your environment, which is also very important to have a monitoring on top of that. And finally, it allows you to quickly deploy a secure infrastructure on demand by reducing the time to market for new application and services and making sure that you have this confidence of bare minimum secure baseline that your infrastructure is actually compliant with. Okay, that said, uh, this is just the part of the infrastructure as a code and security. But as you know, when we speak about operations and we speak about how we can bring all of this into the one kind of concept and principle that we can use, then we need to shift here to DevSecOps principles, right? And what are the modern DevSecOps principles that your organization should invest to adopt, right? Because if you want to be on that curve, you have to be ready. And DevSecOps is a philosophy and set of those practices that integrates security into your DevOps process. And first one that you may hear a lot is shift left. And what it stands for is that it's an emphasis of shifting security and testing and controls to the left or earlier in the software development lifecycle, which will enable your team to identify and address the security vulnerabilities early in the development process when it is much cheaper or not costly to fix, and that would reduce of course the cost and impact of those issues so you can remediate them. Or in another word, shift left will also help you fail fast and often by basically making sure that you have a frequent iterations and you can test your code without expecting that it to be a perfect, in a perfect state, so you can provide this, uh, I would say, so that you can provide those um, gradual incremental value on each deployment and show the progress to your customers. Next, we have automation, right? Automation, again, you can't skip that. And automation is a key principle that's coming with the DevSecOps. It enables teams to quickly and consistently test, deploy, and manage code while also ensuring that security controls are in place. Then we have, of course, CI/CD, right? You can't skip that from your DevSecOps principles, which is your continuous integration and continuous deployment. And this is a software development approach that always emphasizes frequent automated testing and deployment of code change into your environment. So with DevSecOps, you have this requirement that your security testing and controls are integrated into your pipeline, into your CI/CD pipelines, and enabling team to quickly identify and address security vulnerabilities as they occur. Of course, because we talked about code, now in order to have that compliance, we want to make sure that our security itself is also baked into the code, or a notion of security as a code, right? So security as a code refers to the use of code and automation to define and manage security controls, policies, and procedures. So this will enable your team and your project to manage security in a consistent and repeatable way by reducing the risk of human error. Again, this is part of the automation that you want to bring into your security aspects of the project. And of course, with DevSecOps or principle, we should always emphasize collaboration and communication. This is very key and very important thing that might be skipped because emphasizing this between development, security, and operations teams is something that will bring the best minds to collaborate, and it will ensure that security is integrated into every aspect of the software development lifecycle, and that all the teams will work together to identify and address the security vulnerabilities. So you want to make sure that it's a your basically DevSecOps principles are more in the it's a team sport rather than just security teams trying to find the issues and fix them. And that's also part of the continuous improvement that with any pipeline and any approach you want to build into the team so that you can take your team can take those constant improvements and assess them and improve each security practices, process, and tools to ensure that they are keeping up with the latest threats and best practices. Because with security, the landscape is always going to change. You'll get the new threats no matter what, and having this continuous improvement as part of your process is going to help your team to to reflect on that and make sure that you have continuous iteration and feedback loop. So overall, by investing yourself, your team, or your organization into these modern DevSecOps principles that we counted, you became you can improve your security posture dramatically and deliver software that is secure, reliable, and high quality. Now, this is going to be the last uh, I would say last slide before we switch into some demo to some showcase on how you can apply those things. But with policies and governance, what we are trying to target is what are the those policies and governance that drive your organizations toward the adoption of secure infrastructure as code approach. So basically, what policies you need to have in place in order to make this adoption happen and come to the way that you have this secure infrastructure as a code mindset within your organization. So first of all, security compliance that we mentioned before, it's all about those standards that you need to comply with. And as you mentioned, talked about HIPAA, PCI, and SOC 2. There are some of those uh, compliance standards. And using those secure infrastructure as code approach can help your team and your project to achieve those security compliance by enabling them to enforce those security policies and best practices in a standardized and automated way. Then to achieve that, you need to have DevOps practice, which is a mindset. It's not just tool, it's a mindset where your software development approach will emphasize on collaboration, automation, and integration between development and operations teams. So it should be something that you have this practice across the organization and disciplines. And IaC, or infrastructure as a code approach, is a natural fit for DevOps practices as it enables team to manage infrastructure using the same tools and process as they are used for the application code. Then, of course, next thing here is risk management. And organizations need to define and mitigate risks to their infrastructure and data, right? That's the data is the most important, I would say, most valuable assets that you have to protect and secure. And with IaC approach, your approach, you can provide to your organization a greater visibility and control over the infrastructure, making it easier to identify and address security vulnerabilities. Again, secure infrastructure as code approach helps organizations to reduce the risk by ensuring that security measures are built into the infrastructure from the start. And codifying them, making them secure as a code is part of the process. Then, of course, once you have that in place, continuous monitoring is an observability. Having good monitoring is must to have, and it's a critical aspect of maintaining the security of an organization's infrastructure too. Security can build in the infrastructure from the start by using the, again, infrastructure as a code approach. And this approach will provide your organization with the ability to automate security testing and validation, ensuring that security measures are maintained and tested over time. So you use and you update them. And finally, compliance auditing, right? So auditing is a requirement for many organizations. And depending on which industry you are serving your customers, you may have different requirements. But with infrastructure as a code approach, uh, audit trails can be automatically generated and maintained, making it easier to demonstrate compliance with security policies and regulations. Secure infrastructure as code will provide to your organization with the ability to audit their infrastructure and resources for security vulnerabilities and demonstrate that they have implemented appropriate security measures to protect them. So in summary, the policy, the policies and governance that drive organization toward the adoption of secure infrastructure as code approach are security compliance, DevOps practices, risk management, continuous monitoring, and compliance auditing that we covered in this slide. These policies and governance provide organizations with the tools and processes to build, deploy, and manage secure infrastructure at a scale whenever needed. All right. That said, in terms of use cases and demos, before going to the questions and answers, I want to share my browser here for a second, and you should see a Azure subscription that I'm using here for policies. And here I have two policies that have been deployed. These are the initiatives. One of them is a standard one, as you see there in the red, and I have tag governance policy. So this tag governance policy is here whenever you are trying to tag and maintain the security, you want to make sure that each resource is have a proper, tagging policy so that you can query them and look at the state, right? So here, as you see, these tagging policies are based on the resource and resource group concepts within the Microsoft Azure. And if you are interested in how to apply them and how it works, I have a repo. And I'm going to share the QCR code on the next slide to this repo. But here under the, you can find many useful information about the security concepts that you want to use, and as well as tagging policies here in this folder. If you go there, you can find the uh, descriptive code uh, of each definition of that policies that have been deployed, and you can get understanding what's going on. So if you want to deploy this, I would just say you come to this
When the
repo,
stakes
read
are
it,
high at
and
work,
also look into the scripts where you have ready-made scripts for you to help you with the deployment of those resources. Okay, that said, I have this questions and answers section. So if there are any questions in the studio, Gustavo, you can bring them up.
Hello,
And
Alhan.
yes.
So we are organized in a way that we leave the questions and answers for the last part of the
Mm-hmm.
block.
I
So
see. All right,
thank
that's
you very
that's
much.
works fine.
Thank you very
Let
much
me
for your
let me just cover
presentation.
it up, Gustavo. Thank you, because I
Okay.
promised in my presentation that I'll put the QCR codes. So these are the QCR codes that you can scan with your mobile phone if you're on a mobile device, and get the information about that, how to get to learn with Bicep. On the left side you have this first look course on a LinkedIn platform that you can watch if you'd like to and get familiar with that tool. And I also maintain with the community, we maintain this GitHub repo called Awesome Azure Bicep, where you can get up to speed with policy as a code kind of concepts and other things that this specific infrastructure as a code tool will provide to you. So that said, I want to thank you everyone here because our questions are going to be at the end. So thank you everyone for joining my session, and thank you DevOps Global Summit DevOps for organizing this event. This is really a great initiative, and thank you everyone who joined. And I hope that you can, get some helpful information from my presentation, and you can get connected with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Feel free to direct message me and say hi, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Erwan. Was a very nice presentation, and I hope you can stay with us in about
Yeah,
30 minutes after the next presenter, and we will for sure discuss a lot, and we have a lot of questions for sure.
sure, I will join that session. See you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
See you.